Tonight, 3 Israeli hostages accidentally killed by Israeli troops in Gaza. Misidentified as a threat.
What we have told our troops is to be extra vigilant.
And the difficulty of getting much-needed aid into hard-hit areas.
How do we make sure that these trucks can go everywhere?
In Quebec, an 11-year-old boy dies while playing hockey after getting hit by a puck.
Fatal accidents are very rare.
Plus, Prince Harry is victorious in a landmark phone hacking case against major British tabloids. In Vancouver, an art gallery discovers fakes on its own walls. And a special recipe for kindness.
The teacher gave me a flow sheet of stickers.
One child's mission to help his community one sandwich at a time.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Todd Vanderhayden.
Good evening. Israel's military revealed today that its forces accidentally killed 3 Israeli hostages during fighting with Hamas in northern Gaza. In a statement, the country's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, quote, "Together with the entire people of Israel, I bow my head in deep sorrow," calling it an unbearable tragedy. It comes as the United States is putting new pressure on Israel to do more to avoid civilian casualties. CTV's Judy Trin reports.
3 hostages killed by the Israeli Defense Force. They were kidnapped from kibbutzes on October 7th. The IDF said it mistook the Israelis as threats. The hostages, like Hamas, were dressed in civilian clothes.
We're looking into how it happened, how it came about that these hostages were out.
The deaths triggered demands on Israel to secure the release of hostages immediately. There were previous concerns about being caught in the crossfire. In leaked audio recordings of a meeting last week between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and freed captives, one woman lashed out.
You have no information. You have no information. The fact that we were shelled, the fact that no one knew anything about where we were.
As fighting in densely populated areas continues, the IDF says it will exercise more care.
What we have told our troops is to be extra vigilant and do one more safety check before dealing with kinetics, with any threat that they face on the battlefield.
The U.S. National Security Advisor urged Netanyahu to lower the intensity of the war. Then Jake Sullivan went to the West Bank to tell the Palestinian Authority that it should prepare to govern Gaza.
The Israeli government has indicated that it does not have a long-term plan to occupy Gaza.
Israel has also opened a second border crossing at Kerem Shalom, allowing 200 aid trucks to pass into the region daily.
What we now have to work on as well, how can we make sure that these trucks can go everywhere in Gaza? And not just in the south of Gaza, but also to the north of Gaza.
The increase in aid is part of a commitment Israel made in a deal with Hamas last month to free hostages. Israel believes there are still 132 captives in Gaza. Todd.
All right, CTV's Judy Trin in Ottawa. Thank you, Judy. With a war still raging in Ukraine, Canada is beefing up its presence in Eastern Europe, planning to double the amount of troops stationed in Latvia. It'll bring the total to around 2,200 soldiers by the year 2026. We're also sending 4 Griffin helicopters as of next summer.
These aircraft will boost our military capabilities on NATO's eastern flank.
Defense Minister Bill Blair made the announcement in Latvia today, where he is meeting with Canada's top soldier, Defense Chief General Wayne Eyre. Blair said Canada will also contribute a squadron of 15 Leopard tanks. The hockey community in Quebec is reeling tonight after the death of an 11-year-old boy. He died after being hit by a puck during a team practice earlier this week. It happened in Saint-Eustache, that's a suburb north of Montreal. CTV's Vanessa Lee now with the tragic details and new questions about safety on the ice.
At a place normally filled with excitement as children play Canada's game, there is heartbreak. An 11-year-old will not be returning to his team. This parent says, "I just can't believe it happened to a boy so young. He had his whole life ahead of him." Police say he was accidentally hit by a puck in the neck during practice Tuesday night, and he was wearing all the required protective equipment. He was rushed to hospital. He succumbed to his injuries after days in intensive care.
The speed at which the puck can come in, it's actually a direct hit. So even if you have like some sort of Teflon but it's not always like Kevlar in terms of protection. So even if it bumps in a little bit, if you're in a bad place at the bad moment, it could be fatal.
From the minors to the pros, the incident has shaken the hockey community. The Montreal Canadiens echoing the sadness being felt. Tweeting their thoughts and condolences go out to his family and friends during this incredibly difficult time. The city of 45,000 says it is offering psychological support to the young athletes' teammates and anyone who may be struggling, as politicians reflect on how they can make the sport safer.
There's law that you have to wear some neck guards, some protection, face mask on the ice. It's a law here in Quebec, so I don't know where further we can go before waiting for some, professional recommendation.
The need for neck guards has been in the spotlight recently when former NHL player Adam Johnson died after his neck was cut by a skate during a game in England. Police say the coroner's office will assist in their investigation. They say they have no reason to suspect foul play, and the purpose is to shed light on the causes and circumstances surrounding this tragedy. Vanessa Lee, CTV News, Saint-Eustache, Quebec.
The governor of the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem, is warning of tough times ahead. In his final speech of the year, the governor expressed optimism over his ability to bring down inflation, but says the next 2 or 3 quarters could be difficult.
We are in the tough phase of the monetary cycle. Inflation's come down, but it's still too high. And the increases in interest rates that are needed to relieve price pressures are squeezing many Canadians.
Macklem is forecasting that 2024 will be a transition year, with the cost of living still increasing too quickly, but with growth subdued. Unlike the U.S. Federal Reserve, Macklem says he has no plans to drop interest rates anytime soon. In the nation's capital, the House of Commons wrapped its fall sitting today. Parliament is now on holidays for 6 weeks. But for the Trudeau government, the end of the year brings bad news. Here are the results of the latest poll done by Nanos Research. It has the Conservatives at nearly 40%, the Liberals at 26%, and the NDP at 20%. That means if an election was held today, the Conservatives would be in majority territory with 166 seats, compared to 53 for the Liberals, with 76 seats too close to call. This poll, the latest example of Conservative momentum after a feisty fall session full of political fights. CTV's Jeremy Sharon reports.
I made a serious mistake.
Rising from his speaker's chair, Greg Fergus started the final House sitting day of the year with an apology.
I should have never recorded that video. Not in the speaker's uniform, not in the speaker's office, and not for a friend.
It's such a great putting to bed days of contention over a partisan video, coming at the end of a session that has been filled with division and political acrimony.
What do you expect? Canadians are hurting. This government doesn't realize it, and that's why it's intense in the House.
We're just about to move into the holidays, and I think it's a good idea for Mr. Poilievre and his Conservative members of Parliament to go home, cool down a bit, take a break, talk to Canadians, real Canadians, and reflect.
The Conservatives have followed through on a threat to delay the Liberal government's agenda as much as possible over their opposition to the carbon tax.
Conservatives believe that the House should sit on Monday, December 18th to pass Bill C-234 that will take the carbon tax off farmers and lower food prices for Canadians.
I'd like to wish all members a very Merry Christmas.
But today, this 11th hour push by the Tories to keep MPs in the House longer failed. As for the NDP, they've made progress on anti-scab legislation and reached a new deadline for a national pharmacare plan as part of their deal to keep the Liberals in power.
So the NDP comes out of this parliamentary session as the worker bees of Parliament with a strong track record of success.
And today, as the Senate wrapped too, the Liberals' highly contentious gun control bill became law, banning assault-style rifles moving forward and putting a pause on handguns.
Now, much of this session has focused on the economy and affordability. It started and ended that way, and it's expected, Todd, the House will pick up right where it left off after this 6-week break.
All right, thanks very much, Jeremy. Ottawa revealed today how much money news outlets in our country will get from Google when the tech giant uses their news on its online platforms, part of a recent deal between Google and the federal government.
Smaller news outlets also have a seat at the negotiating table with the tech giants, so this is extremely good for Canadians.
Under the terms of the so-called Online News Act, CBC Radio-Canada will get 7% of the $100 million annually. Private broadcasters will get 30%. The remaining 63% will go to newspapers, other digital media. The law comes into effect next week, and Canada's telecom regulator will examine if it applies to Meta, the owner of Facebook and Instagram, which removed news from its platforms in Canada months ago in an ongoing dispute over the law. In the United Kingdom, Prince Harry won an historic case today. It was against a group of British newspapers. A judge ruling the prince's phone was hacked extensively by the group, which publishes the popular tabloid, The Daily Mirror. Their actions included the unlawful accessing of voicemails and the use of private investigators. CTV's Kamal Karamali has more on a big victory for the prince.
Nearly 5 years after bringing claims of phone hacking forward and a historic appearance as the first royal to give evidence in court in over a century, today, vindication. Prince Harry was not at court, but his lawyer and his statement were.
I've been told that slaying dragons will get you burned. But in light of today's victory and the importance of doing what is needed for a free and honest press, it is a worthwhile price to pay.
The judge ruled 15 of the 33 news articles Harry submitted as part of the trial had information that was gathered through mobile hacking, a practice that he determined ran from 2003 to 2009. Saying Harry's phone was only hacked to a modest extent, but unlawful information gathering was widespread and habitual at Mirror newspapers, awarding Harry more than £140,000 in damages. That's nearly $250,000 Canadian.
I hope that the court's findings will serve as a warning to all media organisations.
Okay, got a short statement. But high-profile broadcaster Piers Morgan denied he knew of any phone hacking while he was an editor at the Daily Mirror.
I've never hacked a phone or told anybody else to hack a phone.
There is by no means universal acceptance by the media, but I think media management wants to draw a line and move forward with this.
Prince Harry has ongoing suits against 2 other newspaper publishers.
Those newspaper groups as well will be looking at these judgments and perhaps thinking we need to get our house in order because we could be next.
Mirror Group Newspapers has apologized. Prince Harry now calling on police to investigate bringing charges to all companies caught breaking the law. Todd?
All right, Kamal, thanks very much for that. And tonight, a jury in Washington, D.C. has ordered Rudy Giuliani, the former lawyer for Donald Trump, former mayor of New York City, to pay more than $200 million for defamation.
The absurdity of the number merely underscores the absurdity of the entire proceeding.
Rudy Giuliani had falsely accused 2 Georgia poll workers of ballot fraud in the 2020 U.S. presidential elections. The mother and daughter testified about the threats and harassment they faced.
I can never move back into the house that I called home. I will always have to be careful about where I go.
Giuliani promises to appeal the decision. Also in the United States, the coroner's office in Los Angeles saying today that actor Matthew Perry died from the acute effects of the drug ketamine.
I'm not great at the advice. Can I interest you in a sarcastic comment?
Perry, who is best known for his role as Chandler Bing in the hit TV show Friends, was found dead in the jacuzzi at his home in Los Angeles in late October. Autopsy results released today showed ketamine in his system. Ketamine is a sedative sometimes used to treat depression. It is also used as a recreational drug. The coroner also listed drowning and heart disease as contributing factors in Matthew Perry's death. Coming up, a Vancouver art gallery making the most of fake paintings.
It's actually quite rare that something like this happens.
The clue that gave them away revealed. Changes are in store for Toronto's own version of Times Square. Yonge and Dundas Square in the heart of the city will be renamed Sankofa Square. Comes after some raised issues over the role that Scottish politician Henry Dundas played in the slave trade.
It means a lot to young Black boys and girls who now feel like they're being seen.
The city says Sankofa is a word that originated in Ghana in West Africa and stands for reflecting on and reclaiming teachings from the past. 2 subway stations and a library named after Dundas will also get new names, but for now, Dundas Street will keep its name. No art gallery ever wants to discover it has fakes hanging on its walls, but that's what happened to one gallery in Vancouver. Sketches thought to be from the famed Group of 7 turned out not to be, after a certain shade of green gave them away. Instead of pulling the fakes down, though, the gallery using them to educate the public. CTV's Abigail Turner explains.
This was an unusual size for the period, and the paperboard was also quite a lot thicker than what he typically used.
An indicator that these oil sketches thought to be painted by J.E.H. MacDonald from Canada's renowned Group of 7 were in fact fake.
I think it's actually quite rare that something like this happens.
The 10 paintings were donated to the gallery in 2015. Questions about authenticity were first raised by a Vancouver journalist at the Globe and Mail, who reported the sketches were unearthed from an Ontario backyard. Shortly after, a detailed investigation was launched.
It's not like the Antiques Roadshow where someone comes in and an expert looks at it and in 5 seconds tells you everything about it.
Kate Helwig, the senior conservation scientist, has examined 160 sketches of MacDonald's, but in these works, the color of green stood out.
The green is a pigment called phthalocyanin green. It wasn't discovered until 1935, and it wasn't commercially available until 1936, and MacDonald died in 1932.
Helping to conclude, the paintings are fake. Instead of removing the artwork, the gallery decided to create an exhibit showcasing the detailed investigation process that led to the discovery. It's on view until May.
It's a unique opportunity for us to open the doors and reveal how institutions work.
The art gallery's CEO says he's not embarrassed by the mistake, instead proud to be transparent and move forward authentically. Abigail Turner, CTV News, Vancouver.
Well, there was nothing fake about the drugs discovered in this next story, although the suspects were certainly creative. Investigators in Colombia confiscated more than 2 tons of cocaine disguised as, you guessed it, pieces of charcoal. The drugs have an estimated street value of more than $14 million. Officials say the cocaine was destined for Europe. All right, still ahead, a centenarian gets 100 reasons to smile.
It's just amazing to be able to just give it back and say to them thank you for everything they've done in the past.
The Montreal Alouettes visit one of their own with the Grey Cup. The Grey Cup made a stop at a seniors' home in the eastern townships of Quebec today. After the recent victory of the Montreal Alouettes, it was part of a special visit to a former player who was on the team 70 years ago. Gordon Ross is now 100, and getting to see that cup in person was a lifelong dream. CTV's Matt Grillo has more.
It's a moment, a lifetime in the making. At 100 years old, Gordon Ross finally gets to touch the Grey Cup. Ross played for the Alouettes for 3 years back in the early 1950s. At 6'3" and 210 pounds, he was a force. His nickname was Beef.
He was big, he was physical, and one of the things I think happened a lot is I don't know if they could really body check him very well because he was pretty big.
The Grey Cup made its way to Cleveland, Quebec, the seniors' home where Ross lives. The CFL's top prize was brought to town by linebacker Alex Gagne.
It's just amazing to be able to just give it back and say to them thank you for everything they've done in the past.
Ross has accomplished a lot in his life. In 1951, he became a pilot officer in the Royal Canadian Air Force, and he also had a stellar career coaching football at Bishop's University. The team won multiple championships. Despite an incredible life, his family says he always managed to keep it simple.
one of the things that we love about him is he kind of takes it one day at a time.
When he played for the Alouettes, Ross made $25 a practice and $100 on game days.
Back in those days, they had to have a regular job. It wasn't a career, it was fun.
And even though he's slowed down in recent years, when it comes to football, nothing can distract him. While waiting for the Grey Cup to arrive, Ross watched the final minutes of the Alouettes' victory.
They were playing the last 10-15 minutes of the game. As soon as they sat him down, we were trying to talk to him a bit. He locked into the game, and he's just watched the end of the game. That's the way he always was.
He never won the Grey Cup in his playing days, so that makes this visit even more special. Matt Grillo, CTV News, Cleveland, Quebec.
All right, coming up after the break.
Bread, mayo, bologna, and cheese.
Serving up kindness for those who need it most. And finally for us tonight, a 6-year-old boy is making waves in Newfoundland. His mission to help out those less fortunate. That means soup, sandwiches, and best wishes for the holiday season. CTV's Garrett Barry now on a recipe for warmth that's catching on fast.
By now, Jackson's a bit of a pro at this because he's done it a lot, at least by his count.
Probably 55.
So he's got the recipe down to a science.
Bread, mayo, bologna, and cheese.
This all started with a difficult question when Jackson saw a tent encampment along a popular St. John's Road.
So I said, they have no homes. So I said, they're staying in tents. So he was quiet for a moment, and then shortly after that, he said, Mom, he said, can we make sandwiches someday? He said, to deliver, he said, to the homeless.
First, it was cold plates, then soup, sandwiches, and hot chocolate. Next, handmade Christmas cards that will hold some fast food coupons, hopefully delivered on Christmas Day.
I have no idea where he came up with the idea or how, like for someone 6 years old to fathom the interest in doing something like this.
Some online fundraising by his mom and sister makes this donation machine work. He's gotten a lot of good reactions.
Everybody is just commenting and saying like how such a big heart that he has.
He was even invited to speak at a class at Memorial University.
One of them gave me a sticker, and then we got lots of balloons. And then their teacher gave me a flow sheet of stickers.
But for Jackson, the real reason for all this work is simple.
Because I just wanted to help.
Garrett Barry, CTV News, St. John's.
And that's it for us tonight. I'm Todd Vanderheyden. For Omar Sachedina, everyone here at the CTV National Newsroom, thank you for watching. I'll see you again right here tomorrow night.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.
This has made you a target.
5 crucial questions to expose the truth.
He made a mistake. That's stunning.
One team uncovers the stories that need to be told. Watch W5, Fridays at 10 on CTV.